Hi and welcome to the fifth in this series of Get Started videos. You'll find the files in this video in the folder int06. So in this video it's going to be quite short. We're going to look at what happens when things go wrong, because as you might appreciate, MRDCL syntax has to be exactly right, otherwise it won't run for you. Let's have a look at the file we've got here. We've got getstarted5.stp. And I'm going to try and run that as we have with the other Get Started videos. So let's click go and let's run it. Now you'll see that this has actually crashed with errors, and it didn't get as far as we have on the videos when everything's worked perfectly well. So you'll see here that we've got errors. We've got one error in the data stage, one missing text, two warnings and two errors in the table stage. And as a result of that, because there's errors in our script, it didn't get any further. It won't go on and try and run the tables and produce anything if you've got any errors. Your scripts have to be error-free, or they have to be at least logical so they run. That doesn't mean you can't make errors still. So let's see what's gone wrong. Let's see how we go about finding what's gone wrong. Now, so far we've been working in STP files. To find your errors, you're going to edit the listing file, and the listing file looks very much like the STP file, except it will have any error messages in there. And when we come to the next video in this series, you'll see how it expands any repetitive code for you. But let's put that aside for now. Let's look for our errors, and you can find your errors by locating any occurrence of greater than F. F for a fault, and you can also locate warnings by locating greater than W. So if I locate greater than F, the first one it's found is in the commentary as a comment there, and the next one, but we actually now come to a real error where it's got greater than left from column 1 or left justified in this document. And you can see the error I'm getting at tells me that I've got the wrong number of items in my text. And I look at this and I can see straight away that what I've done, I've picked up codes 1, 2 and E, so I've got a variable of 3 bits. But when I come to my text, I've just got yes and not stated. So there's an error with that, and MRDCL is saying, well, actually if we look just below, I've got 2 items in the text, but Q1 in its definition has got 3 items. Now I need to go and correct that. Now it's very easy to make the mistake of correcting it in this listing file. This is not the place you correct it. This is just an output that comes from actually running that run that we just click the go button to run. So we actually need to now go to the STP file and correct it. So we locate this question, and we can see what we've done here is we've missed out the no answer, and we can add that in. Another common error you might make is if you left that semicolon off, it would still error because, again, it would treat this as one continuous piece of text. Remember that MRDCL script is free format, so what it will do, it will read that as no, and then just carry on to the next line as not stated, and still think there's an error there. It must have that semicolon, otherwise it's going to think there's only 2 responses to that particular variable that you put in as 3 responses. So if we save that and we close the listing file and we try again, we've got a bit further now. We've now got no errors in our data stage. It doesn't actually say there's no errors, but if it just goes through to the next stage without any message, you know you've cleared a problem. But we have got an error now in our table stage, or we've still got an error in our table stage. So let's correct that. Edit list, find greater than F, and sure enough we've got an error down here. As you'll see, the errors generally come out directly after where the error has occurred. That's not always true. There are exceptions to that. Sometimes you forget to close text, and that can be confusing, and we'll look at that in just a moment. So what we've got here is it's saying it's errored with a variable reference before the definition. So what it doesn't like here, we've got a table that's got QQ1 by Q2. Well, it shouldn't be QQ1, it should be Q1. So again, we need to fix that. Go back to our STP file, locate QQ1 and change that to Q1 and save it. And now our run is compiling, and because it's compiled with no errors, it's gone on and read the data, produced our tables, and we have 7 pages of table output. Now, I mentioned in this as well that sometimes closing a quote can cause a problem, and they're probably the hardest things to find. So let's have a look at that. Let's go down to here, and let's say we forget to close this quote at the end here. So what it's going to do now, it's going to keep reading this text here all the way through here onto the next line. This variable definition, it's going to read that as text because it hasn't been closed, and it'll keep reading it until it hits that quote there, and at that point it will say, well, I should have had a comma here, and then I don't understand what AT is. So it's going to have a problem when it gets to this point because we haven't closed that text. So let's save that and see what it does. Sure enough, we've got some errors, and we've got actually a lot of errors now. So let's have a look and see what's happened as a result of this. So the first thing it says, it has statement not terminated properly. So it's quickly ascertained that it's not actually terminated something properly here. It doesn't quite know what's going on. And when I get that message, I tend to look backwards to look for a missing quote. And indeed, that's what the problem is there. But it's caused actually more problems than that, because as far as it's concerned, Q2 doesn't exist. Q2 is this line here is being treated as text because it doesn't know that it hasn't quoted or it hasn't closed the quotes on the previous line or the line before it, the XT line. So it's just carried on reading this as text, and so Q2 won't exist. Now that's going to cause all sorts of problems, because when I get further down, I'm going to get more messages. So let's locate the next error, and we've got an error now in banner because it doesn't know what Q2 is. So it's got a variable reference before definition because it doesn't know what Q2 is. We go down further still, and it says, well, it's got 9 items, but my banner has nothing, so it's completely confused what's going on here, all because of one error. And we come to a table down here of Q1 by Q2. Well, it doesn't know what Q2 is. So indeed, it really is quite confused because of one simple error. So what I've got to do is correct that error and go back to where we didn't close that text, put a quote in there, and now you'll see that our run works perfectly well and we get 7 pages of output. So that's a sort of introduction to learning how to find errors in your scripts and what you've got to do. Always look in the listing file. Don't forget to correct it in the STP file, not the listing file, otherwise the error won't disappear. But if you don't close quotes, you might find that the error message is a little bit further down and probably into the next variable, particularly if that's in the data stage where most texts are actually entered. Well, I hope that was useful. There's another video, of course, in the Get Started series which moves you on to the next level, but that should hopefully help you find errors in your scripts.